Okay, so afternoon, everybody. Welcome all of you to the first of idea sharing webinars. I'm Paul. I work in the marketing department here at eviivo, and today I'm joined by David Weston, chairman of the B&B Association, and Ian and Alex, who also work with me at eviivo in the marketing team. The aim of these webinars is for us as a community to sort of come together and share ideas of how best to cope with the obviously difficult current climate and challenging situation that we are all facing, both from a business perspective, but also from a day-to-day aspect of our daily lives running your accommodations in your own businesses. What we want the platform to really be is a chance for you to share great ideas, hints and tips with each other and your fellow independent accommodation businesses within the community to try and help us focus on how to best manage the situation and ultimately get through it, come out the other end and go on to thrive. We've been faced with difficult times, of course, in the past and always come through. This is a big challenging situation as well. So together we can stand stronger and get through it. So thanks to all those people who have submitted their questions so far and their hints and tips and ideas so far. We'll come on to some of those later. The rest of you, if you're keen to continue to do so, that would be great. We're doing that through the chat function at the bottom of your screens. You'll just to the right hand side of center, you'll see the chat option. That's where to put in your tips and your ideas. What you're doing yourselves in your businesses and any questions, please. Alex will monitor those and then raise them as and when we go through the webinar. So first off, we're going to have a bit of an update from David. David's chairman of the B&B Association is constantly in contact with government, helping to lobby and put the case of the B&B sector to government, making sure we're heard. So he's going to give us a bit of an update as to the latest as to what's happening at a government level. David.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much, Paul, and thanks to eviivo for inviting me to join this webinar today. It's great to have the opportunity to update people on what we're doing. And as the trade association for B&Bs, guest houses and small independent hotels, we're very much here to inform, support and represent you. So we're here to fight your corner, to put your case with government. And of course, in this crisis, it's more important than ever. And I'm a member of a thing called the Tourism Industry Council, which is a group of about 20 to 25 people, heads of trade associations representing every sector of the economy. So I'm here, of course, to represent you guys, the B&Bs and guest houses, and then my opposite numbers are there to represent hotels, restaurants, aviation, attractions, and every other sector. We normally have about 4 meetings a year, and they're around a big table and chaired by the tourism minister. Since this crisis, we're having meetings every few days, and obviously not physical meetings. There are meetings like this, virtual meetings. I've just literally come off one about half an hour ago. We had a Tourism Industry Council meeting chaired by Nigel Huddleston, who's the Minister of Tourism. And we are feeding in, we as the industry are feeding in the concerns of our sector and hearing from government as to what to do, what they're doing about it and what they're doing to help us. Obviously, we've welcomed what has been done last week in terms of help for hospitality businesses, which has been on a good scale. But we very much pressed the point that there are big gaps in terms of the help that's been announced, particularly for small businesses like B&Bs and guest houses, which are outside the business rates system. A lot of the help was based on you having a business rateable value. Even if you weren't paying any business rates because of reliefs, you still had to have a business rateable value for your business. A lot of B&Bs don't, because smaller ones pay council tax. A lot of you don't have any employees other than yourselves, or you're self-employed, and a lot of you don't are under the VAT threshold, so the VAT help doesn't apply. So we've very much been making that point, and I made it again today to the Minister. They say they understand all those and they're working hard on them, and the announcement, there's going to be an announcement shortly, probably tomorrow, but within days, I was told, from the Chancellor of the Exchequer on self-employed, to help self-employed businesses, which will help a lot of you and a lot of our members. It's much more complicated than the employees thing, which is why it's taken longer, but we've been pressing hard on your behalf. So there's that, and there's also the we were pressing for a few days for more clarity on the closure issues around B&Bs, how you've been asked to close and what the exceptions are. I've got the wording on that in front of me. We've got it on our website, and there may be a few questions about that. Very broadly, all B&Bs, guest houses and hotels have been asked to close for normal leisure bookings, but the exceptions are housing key workers and people who are engaged in essential jobs. Again, we can talk about that as the webinar goes on and people can ask questions. So I don't want to carry on
David,
too long.
you mentioned,
point. Yep.
you mentioned the self-employed bit there. I saw a news feed that after the lobby briefing, a spokesman confirmed that the government will announce its package of measures to support the self-employed tomorrow. So perhaps we can expect more on that, because it seems to have been something that's been missing in the whole network or raft of supporting measures. That's the bit that's been, so it's good, perhaps that's on its way tomorrow afternoon.
It is, that's great, yes, and we've been pressing for that ever since the budget, and it will help hopefully a lot of you and a lot of B&B and guest house owners.
That's great, David. That's a big piece of the puzzle to come back in there and finally sort of complete that in terms of the financial assistance. Alex, is there any questions on the chat with regards to that for any sort of clarification?
Nothing yet so far, no.
Okay, no problem. So guys, please do use the chat if you've got any queries or other ideas that you can submit. Great, so thanks, David. Yeah, we'll come on to some of those other sort of clarifications, I'm sure, as we go through, as we sort of move on to the hints and tips and ideas that many of you have been sharing with us already. First one then to come up that we had in was from Jill Jones. She runs Amber House in Arlabas in the UK, and she's highlighted that, of course, she's had a number of cancellations with holidaymaker bookings, like most businesses have had, unfortunately. But she has highlighted that she's getting a few bookings from other sources, and this kind of ties in with that sort of key worker idea. A particular example that she gave was a logistical operative from a Tesco transport operations side. There's a warehouse apparently near where she has a property, and she has a gentleman staying with her for a couple of weeks who now needs to be much closer to that warehouse given the demand that's being put on the supermarket services at this time. So she highlighted she's doing everything with regards to social distancing and keeping clean, washing her hands, still able to serve food, etc. But just highlighting there that we know demand's dried up massively, but there are sort of pockets that you may be able to tap into to at least get some income coming in. I don't know what you sort of think of that, Ian. David.
Well, if Jill is talking about Tesco specifically, isn't she? But I guess
yeah,
for Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Waitrose, Budgeons, Iceland, you know, they must have similar things as they try to keep the shelves full. Where they need to get logistical management to the right places. So I guess that's something that maybe properties can approach those local hubs and offer their rooms see if there's any requirement.
Yeah, I mean, key workers we'll think of the NHS and the kind of medical side of things, which again, a potential pool for perhaps stays, perhaps come on to that a bit later, but key workers are also seen as those teachers, the people working in the service industry that are critical now, from sort of food
and
delivery.
that could be public transport, train drivers, etc. Maybe even people working at universities, not so much lecturing, as all the students have been sent home, but there's, universities are a great place for research going on, or going to be staff involved in medical research at universities who perhaps need to be away from home, perhaps need to be somewhere safe where they can get to and from work. That's another potential opportunity for people.
Yes, and I noticed, and the government and the NHS have been doing a lot of contingency planning, obviously, for some time now, on which involves getting access to extra accommodation for NHS staff and other key workers when the emergency gets even worse than it is now, sadly. And they're doing this contingency planning. They've been talking to hotel groups and already have taken over, requisitioned some sort of rooms in hotels, particularly in cities. They're paying the hotels, but lower agreed rates, but it's some income for the hotels. And we have said to, and we work closely with our colleagues at UK Hospitality, who are the hotel association, and we've said that if the NHS were looking at placing key workers in rural or coastal areas outside cities where B&Bs and guest houses may be the only accommodation, that we've offered to work as a broker and try and help them find accommodation, and then contact B&Bs and guest houses to see if we can help place workers if it comes to it. So there's that planning going on in the background. I don't know whether what'll come of it, and in a way we hope nothing will come of it, but unfortunately this crisis is going to get worse probably before it gets better, and so yes, there may be other key workers that they'll place.
I mean, we're working on something at eviivo across the sector as well, that's called Stays for Heroes, which is about trying to find places that are still offering accommodation for key workers, and so we're going to be sending a call out to people to let us know if they have rooms and they're able within the government guidelines to offer those for key workers, and then we can promote the directory that we have for that and the bookability that we have for that to those people looking for accommodation. Like you say, we're not quite sure how many people they're going to be, but I guess it's always better to have a stock of willing hosts to accommodate this possible numbers, and it's all a good way of trying to fill these rooms while tourists can't travel.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's this idea of, yes, we know demand is massively down, but if there is areas of demand out there that businesses can be helping out now, it's this platforms for them to do that, I guess. I mean, there's another bit of feedback that we had from Jane at the Hive's short stays just outside of Stockport, this particular property. She was highlighting demand for people needing to stay with her to self-isolate themselves because they still needed to go into work, but away from perhaps family members who were showing symptoms and so forth, because they wanted to keep working, but in order to be able to stay safe to do so, they had to kind of stay away from their normal abode. So that potentially could be another source.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the exceptions in the government guidelines, that if people have to stay away from home because other family members are self-isolating or whatever, then they're going to have to stay somewhere, so they can stay in hotels or B&Bs or guest houses.
Good stuff. Thanks, David. Okay, it's another area that people have been contacting us quite a lot about is with regards to using this time when businesses are quieter to do things in their businesses that they might otherwise not have a chance to do or get round to doing. And something that's come up particularly is, I guess because of the great weather that we've been having, is taking photos, making use of the sunny weather to get some nice shots of a property in the sunshine, whilst things are looking nice and quiet, or maybe rooms are empty and rooms that otherwise you might not be able to get in, because guests were in there to take shots at the optimum time when maybe the light's casting a nice shadows and so on across the beds. But that's something else perhaps businesses could be doing at this time.
Yes, I think that's a great thing to do. Obviously, all of us should look at how we can best use this time when we're not busy with guests to look at ways we can improve our business for the future. So when it does come back, and it will come back, it's just a question of time. When it does come back, that we're even better placed to get bookings. And certainly photography is so massively important, as eviivo know better than anyone. You've done some fantastic work on it in the past to prove that if you have a good picture, it will sell. It will help the sales, won't it, Ian? Is that right?
I think the figure we had was something like decent photography allows your rooms to sell for £29 more, or something like that. It's quite a high figure. And as Paul said, given the weather that we've got at the moment, people now have the opportunity to take photos all through the day when they would normally have to try to fit that in between checkout, cleaning, and check-in times. Sadly, lots of people have got the time now to take photos all through the day and to get the best views. So when the sun's shining on the front of the property in the morning, grab your photos. Then when it's shining on the back of the property in the afternoon, get some more photos then. The more photos you get, the better, really. And springtime is such a great time for photography because the flowers are coming out, the lawns are getting cut. So it's really, for both interiors and exteriors, now is the time to go for it, and to set up your perfect breakfast with nobody, without the worry of having to serve it to someone. You can do all of your sort of food placement shots, etc. So that's definitely.
Yeah, we know images make the biggest difference. Anything that you can change on your website, that would be the first thing we always tell people to do, is get great quality images, a good set of images. Make sure you've got images of the bathroom, but also all areas of your property, the external areas, the outside areas. So this is a great time, unfortunately, but given the weather, we're fortunate to have some good spring weather at the moment. Possibly an opportunity for you to get stuck in and getting some nice photos up on your sites.
Yeah, a view across the room to the window, across the bed, is said to be the best shot to have. People always want a bathroom photo, but they don't need to see the bathroom cleaning, the equipment and the sponge and the toilet brush, etc., or the waste paper basket. So always get rid of any of that extra clutter. Guests will sort of expect it to be there, but they don't need to see a photo of it. So try and get sort of nice angles on your bathroom and stuff, and be a bit imaginative, and take as many as you can, and then narrow them down so you've got the best ones. And regardless of what your property's like, you're not misrepresenting it by providing good photography. And it's not good photography is not just for fancy boutique manor house places. It's for all sorts of properties, because people want to know what they're going to get when they get there, and the photos be appealing enough to attract them there.
Yes, it's really good advice on the photo side of things. Alex, I think we've had a couple of questions come in on the chat.
Yes, we've had a couple going back to people who can accept bookings for key workers. Some people have asked, are there any guidelines for what types of rooms are acceptable? Some people have said they've got self-catering properties that can be used as an escape or a retreat. Would they be able to do that for people to work from home?
That's a good question. The guidelines don't specifically say cover self-catering as such. The guidelines I've got applies to, I can read bits of it quickly. It says, does the closure apply to hotels, hostels, B&Bs, campsites, caravan parks, boarding houses for commercial / leisure use, including short-term lets, e.g. Airbnb? And the answer is yes. This applies to any business providing holiday accommodation, including short-term lets, bar very specific exclusions. So that's probably reading that. That does perhaps include self-catering accommodation. And the exclusions are, exclusions from the closure order are that hotels and other accommodation providers should be able to remain open if A, they're part of a key worker, vulnerable groups or health response, B, there's a specific need for some or all of the site to remain open, e.g. if they're housing people who've been flooded out of their homes and or being used to provide services under local authority homelessness duties, or by any other public services to provide emergency accommodation. And also if it's their primary residence, they can remain. That applies more to holiday parks and caravan parks. And it says also what happens to families in temporary accommodation if the temporary accommodation is currently the family's primary residence, they can remain. So that's the official government guidance.
Okay, great, thank you. We also have a few questions about deposits and cancellations. Where do people stand? Some people are offering a credit for a future stay. Is that something they should be doing, or what are the...
That's a very good question. Deposits and cancellations. At the moment, the same, all the usual laws regarding contract terms, deposits and things are still technically in force, but the government are keen to see flexibility in certain areas to allow businesses to not to be too hard hit. An example of that is in the tour operating business, where the law says that refunds must be given in cash straight away, and the government is allowing some smaller tour operators to say, can we give a voucher instead of an immediate cash refund? Because if they had to refund everything immediately in cash, it could bring the businesses down in many cases. But in terms of cancellations of your guests, B&B guests, a lot of, obviously everyone will know the urgency of the situation, and most people are sympathetic to B&B and guest house owners and understand what position you're in. So, and we're hearing from a lot of our members, particularly from their regular customers, that they are happy to defer their bookings, and even if under the terms and conditions they would have been entitled to a full refund, they're actually agreeing to say, well, look, we'd love to come. We can't come at Easter now, but we'd like to perhaps come as soon as we can, as soon as we're allowed to come and stay. So can we move our booking and keep the deposit for use on another date yet to be finalised.
Yeah, I guess, David, for many people who've been booking stays, if they wanted to go away at Easter and that's been in effect cancelled this year, well, Easter next year, if you want that Easter break, then you've already done the legwork in deciding where you want to go, which part of the country, which sort of property you want to go to. You're not really going to want to start to do that again. And if somewhere was on your list of places to stay, then I expect it would still be on your list of places to stay, kind of thing. So if properties can encourage their guests to rebook or give them a voucher. Certainly with our system, we support voucher codes where people can put vouchers in when they're making their booking. If they can keep that sort of interest active for another 12 months, then I think there's opportunities there.
Yeah, great. It's a point that one of our US customers actually raised prior to this webinar. Hiram from Fire Mountain Resort, North Carolina, he suggested using gift certificates to enable people to defer bookings, or indeed kind of pre-book for the future, maybe open in terms of ultimately when, but sort of investing and wanting to see their favorite small accommodation continue through this period of uncertainty, so that they're there for them, ready for them to enjoy a stay in the future. I'm sure businesses, a lot of you guys do such a great job. You've got great loyalty, and many customers come and stay year after year. Maybe there's an opportunity to reach out to them and see if they want to kind of book a voucher or pre-book something, just to kind of give you the support now to make sure they get their stay when we're through this.
And I think there'll be more people competing for the beds next year. I mean, that's not necessarily much comfort for now, but if how places around, say, Goodwood sell out, there's going to be all the people that haven't been able to go to festivals, etc. this year. They're going to want to go next year, plus all of the demand of people that would have gone next year. So there's going to be actually quite a squeeze, I think, in terms of demand for rooms next year, because of all of the people that weren't able to do what it was they wanted to do. And so maybe we're looking at sort of an extension of the season there as well, as people push back their bookings into later on in the year.
Yes, that's very true, Ian. And it looks like the autumn period, if the epidemic goes as we're expecting, it looks like the autumn period could be very, very busy indeed. We were talking on the Tourism Industry Council call earlier about the events industry, all the festivals and events and conferences, business events that would have taken place in this next few months are all being moved, a lot of them into autumn, which is the peak period for events anyway. About 60% of them normally take place then, and the sort of 40% are being moved into that. So we're going to get possibly a year's worth of events crammed into a short period in the autumn through to the winter. So actually, there could be a very busy period, almost like a summer peak later on this year. So let's hope that will help all our businesses recover after this terrible time when we've had hardly any bookings at all.
Yeah, we certainly had a couple of events that we were going to be at, sort of trade shows and so on, that have been moved into that very period, David. So people will be looking to book rooms that might have not been doing so at other times now for that period. So there's an opportunity perhaps there to make sure pricing's right and cancellation policies are set as such that you can pick up those bookings and that demand if it is out there, admittedly for 2-3 months time, but at least it'll be something coming in. Okay, great. So Alex, I don't know if you saw that other thing on the chat about budgets per night for people looking for self-catering, working from home.
No, I didn't, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's a private one. So some people being given work from home budgets per night and looking for self-catering to work from home, averaging at sort of over £100 per night, which is interesting. And perhaps pick that up with that person. Okay, so yeah, I might try and pick that up separately, because possibly that's another source of demand to tap into.
Well, I missed what you said there. Did you say that people have been given a budget to spend on working?
To work from home budgets per night. So if companies are sort of giving people budgets to do that, but not do it at home, I suppose. So work from home in wider spectrum. Maybe there's something we can tap into there. I don't know. But thank you for raising that. We'll try and have a look into that. Okay.
I do have somebody asking with the government guidance that you have, David, if they can get a copy of that from somewhere. Yes,
it's online. In fact, we've tweeted it earlier this week, but we can certainly put it out through eviivo's channels after this. I'm sure Paul can explain how, but yes, we'll put it out.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The eviivo.com/coronavirus page is probably the best one to go to and get any information and up-to-date information that we have. And David and sales are sharing a lot of that information, so we can throw it there, David, for sure.
Great.
Good stuff. Okay. So kind of building on that point we just started to touch on, I guess, in terms of pricing, other things that businesses have been telling us that they've been doing, and indeed we've been kind of highlighting is a good thing to perhaps look at this time, is to take a look at how you're priced, what your cancellation policies are, and also with regards to that being in the longer term, of course, mindful that demand will return. I think it's, given what David just said as well around the events industry, there's an opportunity to look at that, make sure you're in a good position to capture it when that demand comes back. And be mindful that the peak seasons might indeed move around a bit as events move, to Ian's point. Also important to perhaps more so than ever maybe to be mindful of what your competition's doing at this time, to kind of make sure that when that demand, or when people start to book those periods, when they know their concert's been moved to X date, that you're there on the ball ready to capture it with keen pricing or a keen offer. Okay, cool.
So I've just had a question from Arshad, I think. He wants to know about the grants that have been made available to small businesses, if we can get some more information on that.
Yes, there's been various grants, and there's a good government portal on that. I'll talk to Paul afterwards. We'll make sure it's all on the eviivo coronavirus page if it isn't already.
Yeah,
and you can then click through to see all that. As I said at the beginning, a lot of the ones that have been announced so far have been for businesses that have a rateable value, which many B&Bs don't, because they pay maybe council tax instead of business rates. That's why we've been pressing for help for those people, and also help for the self-employed, because it's been a massive package for employees to allow people to be put on furlough, but not yet for the self-employed. As we were just saying earlier, it's just been announced it's going to be tomorrow, I believe, that the government's going to come up with a new package for the self-employed. So watch this space. But yes, the links will be on the eviivo coronavirus page.
Thanks, David. And just another point that's come through to me here on the chat. People that are stuck in the UK, potentially, wanting to get back home, but they can't at the moment. Do we have any clarity there, David, as how they're sort of classified, or is it a bit of a grey area still? Because of course, these people, if they can't get home, they're going to need to stay somewhere.
Yes, it's obviously there's a lot of questions coming up, because the way that the government announced these rules, they've tried to put some guidelines, but of course, then 1,000 questions come up, and that the answers aren't necessarily in the guidelines. So we're all going to have to use our common sense to some extent, and take that the key thing in all this is the social distancing and preventing people passing on the virus. So that's the key number one point. But as you say, Paul, there's a lot of instances. We were hearing about one from a member earlier who contacted us because she said there's a family currently staying, and they're from Hong Kong, and they're already staying with her, and they were due to go on to the next place, which was a hotel, and of course they can't now go there because under the guidelines the hotel isn't allowed to accept their holiday makers, and isn't allowed to accept them. So of course the family asked the B&B owner, can I stay with you? They contacted us and said, what does the guidelines cover that? Well, of course it doesn't cover that, because they haven't thought of every permutation. But what we said to them is, we in those kind of situations have to make a judgment. Nothing in the guidance has said that you should actually kick out guests you already have. It says don't accept new guests. In this case, the guests were already there, so by letting them stay another couple of days, they're not compromising anything health-wise that hadn't already been compromised. So that particular B&B owner was going to let the family stay a little bit longer, because they didn't have any other alternatives. They couldn't then book into a new accommodation. So, but obviously she was making sure that they knew that they couldn't just behave as normal and have a normal holiday. They had to they had to keep social distancing. They couldn't just mix with people as they normally would have done. But they could stay where they were.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what it comes down to, isn't it? Is what purpose is someone booking for? And it's really up to providers to satisfy themselves that their guests aren't just coming on holiday. Again, with the lovely weather, it's so tempting for people to think it's going to be quiet in the New Forest or wherever. Let's go down there. And unfortunately, that's just not allowed to do that. So it's incumbent on the guests, but also on the providers to make sure that they know who's booking with them. And as you say, the guest behaviour is appropriate, especially if they're from overseas. They might not fully understand what the rules are, even though it's a global situation. So I guess they will be.
Absolutely. We've had people, a couple of questions or highlighting things about insurance, and I know we've been trying to do some digging, Ian, you particularly, around insurance and what we can find out for B&B owners as to kind of where they stand. They haven't been so forthcoming, I think it's fair to say, like the banks have, in terms of being able to get specific contact details or specific packages or help. Ian, I know that we're on that, but we haven't really had any sort of joy so far. And I think, David, the same from your side. We haven't really had any sort of clear kind of guidelines on that.
No, from I've seen lots of examples so far of
You dropped out about that, Ian. Do you want to?
I was saying I've seen quite a few examples of people who've contacted their insurance company and they've sadly been told that you don't have pandemic cover, or if they do have that cover, that cover doesn't apply because COVID-19 isn't on the list of covered diseases because it didn't exist. So there does seem to be at the moment, sadly, quite a lot of clauses that have been invoked, and that's not just across the accommodation industry. I've been looking elsewhere as well, and I'm not sure that any one better than the others. And it seems to be sort of across SMEs. They're all finding a similar problem, whether they've got cover or not. And of course, many people don't have cover, but even if those that do, because COVID-19 is a new disease, even if it's a certifiable disease, from what I've been reading, it seems to not be covered. But I think we'd be interested in finding out more about people's individual stories there, particularly if anyone's had any success and they have had satisfaction from their insurers. I think from what I've been reading, it's a bit like clauses to do with world wars or something. There's certain things that insurers just wouldn't.
The force majeure, exactly.
Yeah, but they're just not expected. And it's happened in the past where things have just been like, well, nobody expected France, Germany, UK, and the USA to be at war for 10 years or whatever, in the Second World War. And the rules around insurance were moved around then. So certainly something that we're still looking at. If anyone has got any stories, particularly success stories, then I'd be interested to hear about them.
Yeah, David, any sort of rumblings from the government side in terms of trying to push insurance companies to be more lenient, or I guess there's not too much they can do if they've got very strict terms and conditions in place. I guess it's hard.
Yes, I echo what Ian said. It's true that the first thing is that very, very few B&Bs and guest houses have any kind of business interruption cover. And the ones that do, so far, even if they cover notifiable diseases, and COVID-19 now is a notifiable disease, but the insurance companies have been saying, well, it wasn't a notifiable disease when we sold the policy, and they've been very much saying that it's not covered. And the Association of British Insurers, because we've been pushing this as well, the Association of British Insurers put out a statement saying that in virtually all cases, COVID-19 just isn't covered by policies. I think the insurance industry, even though they're huge companies, have been really worried that they don't want to be the ones footing the bill for the whole of the COVID-19 sort of costs. And they've trying to sort of wriggle out of it, as it were, as we might say, but they are from their point of view rationally saying, well, we can't just foot the bill for absolutely everything. The government have been trying to pressurize them, I believe, behind the scenes to say, well, look, what can you do? I don't think there's an answer to that yet, to be honest.
Something
and I don't think it's very positive. I don't think we're going to have a lot of help from that quarter, I'm afraid.
No. But I guess maybe some of the government action is intended to fill that space a little bit. You wouldn't expect the government to step in with those measures. If you had insurance when your wedding's cancelled or you have a car crash kind of thing, you would expect a payout. If that's not the case now, then maybe that government action is kind of helping fill some of that gap, certainly with what's hopefully going to be announced tomorrow as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Sure. Okay, another sort of few hints and tips now that have come in that's worth touching on. A few people saying that they're using the time to kind of spring clean not only their businesses but also their websites, giving them a once over, writing new descriptions, replying to reviews, that sort of thing. I guess now is a chance to kind of look at your virtual shop window and give that a bit of a spruce up as well.
I think that's a good point, Paul. I often talk to providers, and you say, "Oh, let's just have a look at your website," and they take you onto their website and they go, "Oh, well, I need to change those images," and oh yeah, actually, the description needs updating. And we've changed the bathroom, and yeah, actually that attraction's closed now. I haven't mentioned the brand new art gallery that's down the road that loads of people are coming to. And it's like, you're telling me that you need to update that site. So nobody looking at it knows that it needs those updates. So now is the perfect time to look at it with a fresh eye and do all those little things that perhaps you've been putting off because you haven't had the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable when businesses are full with guests and they need looking after, beds changing, food cooking, etc. And the website sometimes gets forgotten about, but it's going to be so important going forward to have that working as well as you can and showcasing what you do as best as possible through your websites. Then now's an opportunity to do so. And as I say, some people have been contacting us saying that that's what they've been doing. So yeah, for sure, a bit of advice to share.
Yep.
I guess
I always used. Sorry.
No, go on, David. Go on.
I always used to, when as a B&B owner, one of the things that takes a lot of time is going through the nice quotes and letters you've had from guests and picking out testimonials and then putting it on your website. That's great, and it's such a powerful thing, but it takes a lot of time to do because you've got lots of emails and bits and pieces. They're all separate and you need to go through them and cut and paste and all the rest of it. So it's a bit time consuming, but it's well worth doing. And normally you do it in the middle of the winter when nothing's happening. That's the sort of thing you can do now to get it right, get those lovely comments that somebody made right on your homepage now. So yeah, worth doing.
And I guess something, trying out things like new breakfast dishes that, or practicing things that you wouldn't get the chance to do, different ways of presenting things. There's all these things that we never have quite time to do, that perhaps with a few more hours in the day that we can turn our hand to.
Dare I say that, just thinking off the top of my head, this one, DIY tasks, would that be something that...
Absolutely, yeah. And it doesn't have to be major stuff. I mean, there's, again, staying in lots of B&Bs.
Painting here or whatever, I don't know.
I mean, something that I would suggest, and I'm sure lots of property owners do it as well, but why not stay in each of your rooms in turn over the course of a period, and look for all of the things like the wobbly coat hook on the back of the door, or the missing one, or the little rubber door stop that stops the door banging, or any of those things, or the fact that the window doesn't quite open right, or all of those things that if you walk in and you clean the room, all looks fine. But it's not until you go to use it. I mean, the shower, when you turn it on, does the shower head sort of jump out of the cradle? Is there something there that you can do? And I always think when I've stayed in places that has the owner or the manager stayed in this room recently, because something might happen that's not worthy, it's certainly not worthy of comment on TripAdvisor, but if I find that, to turn the controls in a funny way, the heating's not quite working properly, or say there's just a sort of a niggling thing that you wouldn't bother as a guest going to the proprietor and saying, oh, I'm not happy with this because there's a crack in the window or this, that and the other. But staying in your rooms as a guest with a little tick list of things that you could work out, I think that would be worthwhile.
It's a good shout, Ian. So you're almost like reviewing your business from a customer's perspective, kind of thing.
Yeah, but taking the time to stay in each room. When you're lying in the bed, can you see the stain on the ceiling that you wouldn't perhaps notice when you're cleaning the carpets?
Sure.
Does the wardrobe door doesn't quite shut properly? If you try to hang something in it doesn't work. So all of those things, just by living in the space as a guest does, rather than making sure it's clean and well presented and neat and tidy. I think there's quite a difference there.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Alex, I don't know if anything else has
come there's been a few actually come through. I don't know if we'll have time for them all.
Okay, just pick out a few of them.
One of them, Catherine, says that she's keen to support the key workers, but she's blocked out her diary. So how can she accept bookings but also remain closed online? This might be one for Ian.
Will
it be a listing on the website?
Well, the intention is to have a directory of all people who are interested, and then have an additional online booking function for those people that with eviivo who we know of their availability. It's an interesting consideration, actually, but I guess you could be listed in the directory and be therefore contactable, and that would take people through to property's own website. Maybe we need to advise people to put a note on their website, say that although we're closed, we are able to accept key workers. Please contact us. I think in terms of showing availability in the diary, there's no way to sort of be closed and be open to a certain group. So I guess
you set up a specific room type, maybe, or would that? I don't know. I'm thinking aloud.
No, exactly. No, it's a really good point, because we haven't considered it yet.
We should feed it back to the people building that page, because obviously
absolutely.
Thank you for raising it. Yeah, it's good
for to be listed in the directory, and we will give that one further consideration.
Yeah, sorry to butt in, because it's not. I'm not technical at all, but maybe one of your guys could look at temporarily having a pop-up that comes, so you keep open, and every booking a pop-up comes that this is during the emergency only key workers and people in certain categories are allowed to book. Are you in that category? Click here if you are. Something of that sort, just that pops up and just filters everything. I don't know whether that's how easy that is technically, but that's the sort of thing that would be needed in a way, wouldn't it, to prompt people to say, are you of this a category that can say.
I mean, certainly from the directory is intended as being a resource for people to look at and then contact the property. We're linking that through to the property's own website. So I still think it's important for the property website to say, yes, we're open and accepting key workers, but sadly we accept
or a rate plan, maybe a specific rate plan for key workers?
Yes, Matt at eviivo has suggested set up a rate plan and just use that specifically for the website that will be in question. So it's possibly doable.
Okay.
Also comes back to say that some people might have to have a background check to confirm they are key workers or some kind of identification. So a directory could be better if they have to contact the property to confirm before booking.
Yeah.
Okay, good points. Thank you, Catherine, for that. It's good point. We'll feed it back to the guys building that page for sure. Anything else, Alex? Because you're right, we are sort of coming to an end of our sort of allotted time here. Anything else that we should raise before we sort of sign off?
A couple of smaller ones, but I think we might have to get to them afterwards.
Okay. Are they ideas or discussion points as such?
More specific queries that we'll need to look into further, I think.
Okay, no worries. Which we can do offline. Okay, well, just want to take a couple of minutes then to just thank everybody for joining us today and doing so in the spirit of what this is all about. It is about sharing these ideas, looking at the kind of key points that are affecting us and your businesses right now. So thanks again for all your contributions. The plan is to do these every week going forward whilst we need to. Hopefully that won't be too long, but hopefully that it's been useful and valuable to do this. I think I can speak for myself, David, Ian and Alex. We've learned a lot, even just in the last hour of being on the call to learn about what things you're doing during this time, what things you need more help on, and hopefully there's ways that we can help with that. So thanks again. Just highlighting that with a view to sharing your tips, the events@eviivo.com website address is the one to fire anything through to. So events@eviivo.com, the email address to get in touch through. I've already mentioned it, but just to steer you in the direction of the eviivo.com/coronavirus page is where you'll find all the updates, and there's maybe a few more that we can add in off the back of this webinar today. So check that out as well. I can see Alex is putting it up on the chat now. This webinar has also been recorded as it highlighted when you joined, and we will house that and have linked to that from the coronavirus page as well if you want to go back and listen to it again. And then the only other thing for me to do is really just say thank you hugely to David for joining us today. I really appreciate all you're doing and all your efforts within your sort of ear to the government and battling for all the independent accommodation owners out there. So thanks for that, and thanks for joining today. Ian and Alex as well, of course. Thanks for your help on this call. And
you're welcome.
I'm sure we'll be on another one very soon. As I say, I think we're going to try and do these every Wednesday, so we'll keep in touch and email out details of when the next one will be. So for now, everyone, stay safe and bye for now.
Thanks everyone.
So keep the questions coming in.
Yep, and any we didn't get to today, we'll get back to later. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.